Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm Andy Schweiger with Schweiger Vineyards. I'm the winemaker here. Thank you, everybody, for waiting. We had a few technical issues today, but our guest today is Cecil Ramirez. In addition to being an amazing friend, an amazing piano player, he also is a certified sommelier working on his level 2, I believe.
That's correct. Yeah.
And also the sales manager for Mason Hamlin Pianos.
That's correct.
Great. Well, so today I figured with Cecil's experience with wine, we would do something fun. We actually have not done here at the winery in a long time. We make 2 single vineyard designate Cabernets, Gate Block and Montaire. And I thought it'd be fun to compare them side by side. But before we get into that, while I figure out if I'm horizontal or vertical, Cecil, do you mind playing for something for our guests?
Oh, sure. Sure. Did you need me to sound check or anything? Or I'm assuming you can hear that.
I can hear that. Paula, how's the sound there? I think we're good to go.
Okay. Do that. Let me go. I got too many screens up here, so let me shut some of this or close some of this down. Alrighty. I'll play and explain later. How's that?
Sounds good. Awesome, Cecil. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Man, you should be here with your saxophone, man. Missing you for one.
If we weren't distancing,
I know. I know. They haven't done that technology thing where we can jam together, I guess.
live real time, no. So that, which is a real bummer, like groups like Street No Chaser, who I'll be doing this with next week. They're in 9 different parts of the country.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
So the only way they can do that, is get a click track and synchronize the click track, and then somebody in a studio produces it and throws it all together. But hey, we do what we can to entertain and have fun together in this time.
That's right. Hey, thanks for having me, man. Really appreciate doing this with you. It's fun.
Yeah, my pleasure. And for those of you just joining us today, we have Cecil Ramirez with us. And if you have any questions or comments while we're talking, for those of you in the Zoom session, just be sure to hit the chat, and to all panelists and all attendees. And if you're in Facebook, just write a comment in the thread. My wife, the lovely Paula, is moderating, so she will repeat your questions to us as need be. So Cecil, question for you.
Okay.
What came first, your love of wine or love of piano?
Well, love of piano. I've been playing piano since I was like 5 years old, so.
Okay, so about 20 years now.
I wish. Yes, Andy, 20 years. So it's been a long, hard 20 years. Seems more like 50 or so. But it's been good, and then the wine came, more as I got into playing a lot more, better shows. I think you and I met through Brian Culbertson, your
right.
Friday guest, and because I've been a part of Napa Valley Jazz Getaway pretty much every year. And so this year would be 9 years, and so
yes.
I hosted a welcome dinner with Brian, and we have a lot of fun, and Brian, he hooked me up with you, and I fell in love with your wine instantly. I remember the first time I came up with my brother, and you were nice enough to, give us an appointment, and it was awesome, because I know you were super busy that day. But awesome wine, man. Really great.
Well, thank you. Well, no, and actually the last time I think we had you up here was the Spring Wine Club party in the spring, right before Jerry went off to college. And so as some of the guests started to take off, Jerry brought out his trumpet, I brought up my sax, and I think we jammed the better part of an hour for the last hour of that party.
Yeah, that was great. I had a lot of fun. That was really great. And it was great to, Jerry, yeah, you guys can play, man. That's right on.
Oh, we get by. It's a year later, Brian was up here, and somebody told Brian I'd brought my sax, and so Brian called me up, and he had me play that funky music in E.
Okay.
Now, if you know anything about saxes, I had my alto, and it's like alto or tenor. I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't. Alto, I'm playing in C sharp. Tenor, I'd be in F sharp, and I've never played this with him, and so, okay, let's go. Everything's an accidental.
Nice. Yeah, that was a workout for you.
Yeah. So then when did you decide to pursue the sommelier testing?
So
that's kind of hard. That's kind of hardcore dedication.
Yeah, a lot of people thought I was nuts. My somm coach in Folsom, he's got a wine bar, and so I've always loved wine, and I've always wanted to know more about it, because wine is like a little snapshot of what was happening in the world when it goes in the bottle. So when I look at something like the 2014 Gate Block or the Montaire, I think about what was happening in 2014, and I approach a lot of wine tasting like that. And so when I was, I was in his wine club and started to get into a lot of different wines. It's natural to do California because we have so much really great wine in NorCal and Central Coast and Southern California. But when I started getting out of the country, going toward Australia, going to South America, going over to Italy and France, and learning a lot about wines, and should also mention Oregon and Washington, and actually every state's got wine. But I started to get really fascinated about, same grape tastes different, same grape in different parts of the country tastes different. Same grape from the same place, different years, tastes different. And so I kind of got excited about learning about that. And I got excited about the cause and effect, what makes wine taste the way it does. And I also got excited about turning people on to wine that they maybe typically don't like. My favorite thing to do is take someone who doesn't like Chardonnay, and find out which Chardonnay they've had, and then show them a different part of the world, or like your Spring Mountain Chardonnay, like is totally for me old world meets new world, which I love, but it's very different than what you're going to get on the valley floor,
I love
or
that with what you say about Chardonnay, because I'll be at tastings and people are coming around. They say, "Oh, do you have anything white?" "Yes, I have my Chardonnay." "Oh, I don't like Chardonnay." "Oh, then let me pour it for you, because I might not make the type of Chardonnay that you dislike. I actually may have a new paradigm of what Chardonnay can be for you."
sure,
And,
sure.
and it's fun. We can turn that light switch on to them and say, "Oh, I do like it."
I love that. That aha moment, I guess, if you want to call it that, where they find out, oh, you know what, I can drink other wines like this. And then I get really excited talking about food pairings. It's like, what are you having for dinner? What wine are you going to have? Because I know when Karen cooks, it's always a challenge to try to find, well, what wine haven't I had in a while, and what can I pair with it? We just did chili. That was fun, and trying to find a good red wine to go with that. And I found one, which was cool. And just little challenges like that tend to make me a little bit sharper about what I'm tasting, and also try to connect dots. And I think that's the big thing for a lot of people. They really do know more about wine, in my opinion, than they think they do. And, you and I, sit there and we help them connect the dots. So it's something they can relate to. And hopefully, like when we taste these wines here, we'll be able to use terms that'll help people connect with it if they're drinking it with us, or even if they're not drinking it with us. We can kind of give them some flavors to wrap their heads around. So,
And that's so true. And the thing that's challenging for me when I'm hosting winemaker dinners is I try not to say, "Oh, and you should smell lilac and this and cherry and plum," because our own definition of what lilac or jasmine is may be different.
sure.
The first time I ever used lavender as a descriptor at a sensory analysis class at Davis, they actually said, "Well, get more specific." I'm like, "I said lavender. What's more specific?" "Well, is it dried lavender? Is it
Mm,
fresh lavender? Is it a perfume sachet lavender?" And
mhm.
there's and what one person might consider lavender, one other person might just simply say floral. So it's within our own paradigm of what we smell in our background smelling.
Sure.
But
Absolutely.
let's nose into these.
Okay.
For those of you who aren't familiar with the background, we've been doing these as single vineyard designate wines since the 2009 vintage. Back then, it was Gate Block and Legacy Block, and it wasn't until 2015, um, Jeff, the winemaker over at Williams Sulliam, he and I were having dinner together, and he pointed out to me, "Hey, Andy, Legacy is the name of the proprietary blend by Stone Street, which is owned by Kendall Jackson." And all of a sudden I realized,
No.
I'm in trademark violation of Kendall Jackson. Oh my goodness. And so Kendall Jackson never came after me. They never said anything, but I instantly said, "Okay, my bad. I'm stopping." And so we thought long and hard. And actually, it was my assistant winemaker at the time came up with the word Montaire. It's a intentional misspelling of Montaire, which Latin root is the top of the mountain, but the other definition is the very pinnacle. And I don't like the idea of reserve wines, because to me, if you have something that is your reserve, it's usually made at the sacrifice of something else.
Mm,
That being said, I make so little of these, it doesn't detract from the regular blend by bottling 25, 50 cases of these single vineyards. And it just goes to show the nuances of microclimates, and even smaller than microclimates, mesoclimates within our property. These two vineyards are less than a half mile apart. The Montaire comes right from in front of my parents' house, and it's more of a flat valley portion. We're very fortunate to be essentially a bowl at the top of a mountain. And so a lot of the topsoil over the years has settled into this area. So it's a little bit more fertile area. And typically I find Montaire is going to be more representative of fresher fruits, jammier, strawberry, more red fruits and blue fruits. We'll see when we nose into this. Gate Block actually was the inspiration of our very first vintage of dedication back in 2000. The very first vintage of dedication we did was 100% Cabernet sourced from the Gate Block. And so it occurred to me, okay, if I'm going to do a single vineyard designate, let's harken back to that wine. Both of these are 100% Cabernet, so it's kind of a throwback to our earlier winemaking days where we weren't pursuing elegance and nuance. We were going for straightforward, full throttle Cabernets. Mm-hmm. So for those of you joining us tasting at home, I'd recommend starting with the Montaire first. Typically, to my palate, it's a little softer. But I think part of the fun of this is to sniff them side by side, go back and forth. And then maybe after we talk about them a little, Cecil, if you're willing to play a second song, we can let the wines open up a little bit more and give them a second shot.
Sure. Do you want me
first,
to first?
let's chat. Yeah, I didn't mean to shock you there, but let's chat about these wines a little bit. And anybody out there, if you guys want to chime in too, feel free to type in the comments and Paula will repeat for you.
You know what gets me about this immediately is just the beautiful color of the wine. You know, it is, let me get a decent light source. It's hard getting a good light source. You know, it's just got a really beautiful kind of a ruby color to it. And yeah.
You know what Gordon was using for a studio light on Monday? He actually had an LED television and he put it to a test pattern that was all white.
Yep.
And he turned his TV into an LED stage light.
Yep. I've got one of those on my phone. People, this is funny. I've got this, this is kind of what I use. And, you know, there's an app for everything, right? Whether you use an iPhone or an Android. I was doing this at my friend's wine bar and somebody asked me, "Are you taking the temperature of the wine?" And I said, "No, I'm just trying to get the color of the wine, really, you know," but it's just so funny. But yeah, you know, I mean, I love this. It's definitely got just a deeper ruby sort of color to it, which I love. Yeah, definitely the rhubarby, you know, kind of flavor component to it. Strawberry, get strawberry.
And I've kind of been cheating. I've been going back and forth, and it is fun. You do see that. You do see that common DNA. They've got that blackberry. They got that black cherry, but the rhubarb, strawberry, almost like fresh strawberry preserves. My mom has a recipe that Paula has adopted of strawberry jam, and I get that refrigerator strawberry jam.
Sure. Yeah, and it's not like, you know, you were talking about descriptors, you know, like what they said about lavender. You know, with the rhubarb, it's almost like a rhubarb pie as opposed to something you just broke in half. You know, it's got kind of I guess baked quality. If I said pie, I guess it would be like a baked quality to it, which I love. And I get a lot of more earth, you know, out of the Montaire on the Gate block, on that Gate block. And the color on the Gate block is interesting too. It's not, for me anyway, it's not quite as translucent. I mean, as the Montaire is, it leads me to believe it's a little bit more full-bodied. But I'm going to guess they're about the same. It really, you know, that's just what I'm getting out of it.
Well, so Gate block actually has a lot more disease stress, and so the berries that come out of there are very tiny.
Okay.
Sometimes they don't even develop a seed, but they still come to ripeness. But they come out the size of BBs.
Great.
And you just have that intense skin, and you get a much more dark brooding tannin structure.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I'm getting like leather notes in it, you know, that I'm not getting as much of in the Montaire. Although I'm getting some leather on the Montaire now. I mean, I think I Coravanned these like 15 minutes before we started. And so I've kind of got two glasses. The ones in the taller glasses I'm just going to leave and then hit it later. But
the Montaire has a little bit of what I call fresh forest floor. You know, you're taking a hike through the woods of Yosemite. That's
yeah. It hits me with like a little bit of a not so much like mushroomy, but it's kind of like a garrigue or a bramble sort of component to the earth, you know.
Tuolumne Meadows after a rainstorm.
Yes, yeah.
Whereas the gate is just much more vibrant, brilliant fruit.
Yeah.
Pomegranate.
Andy, can you remind us what year you're tasting?
Oh, yes, this is a 2014 Montaire and Gate Block.
Now, Andy, I was reading in your notes, is the Montaire something you don't produce every year, or it's quite a bit more limited than the Gate Block would be, or?
The Montaire, I think there were 1 or 2 vintages where we skipped the Montaire, and it wasn't so much that it was more scarce. It's just it did not have the quality that I felt could stand out as something unique and different. And that's one of the tests I want to put myself to, is I don't want to release a single vineyard designate that blindfolded, you couldn't tell the difference between that and my regular Cabernet release. I want these to be something unique and different, a different expression of our terroir. And it's kind of fun to have these. And if you've got 8, 10 people sitting down at a dinner table, open up one each of these, plus the Cabernet, plus the dedication. And you suddenly have a huge breadth of expression from one vineyard.
Yeah.
And it's a very small vineyard. That's for a long time I was resistant to do a single vineyard designate because, you know, we're only 34 acres of vineyard, and at the time 4 acres of that was Chardonnay, and there is no legal definition of what a single vineyard designate is. A single vineyard designate wine could come from a single 100 acre vineyard. Well, you know, I was out disking our 8 acre block today, and every minute I'm coming onto a new soil type, and I'm having to adjust the depth of the disc and how hard I'm pulling because the soil is constantly changing. And you get those averages throughout a vineyard. And yes, spring block is going to be different from Gate Block, is going to be different from Montaire.
I love these. I was actually tasting your 2011 Cabernet, your white label. I was tasting it, you know, later this morning just to kind of, well, honestly, to get the taste of breakfast out of my mouth. You know, so kind of get a little bit clean with this. And it's just even the differences in color between those three, the 2011 or the 11 and the 14 Montaire and Gate Block. It's awesome. You know, it's amazing. And it's one of the things I really love about your wine. You know, and one of the things I love about wine in general, when you go different vintages, you know, it's just it's fabulous.
111 was a much colder, wetter vintage, and it's a vintage that a lot of wine writers said stay away from. And I think that's a shame when people miss opportunities to try wines from a region when it's a more challenging vintage, because to me, that's when great growers and winemakers become all that more creative, because you can only do so much with what God has given you, and you can make some amazing wines in those vintages. Think back to the 98 vintage. You know, everybody stayed away from the 98. They wanted 97 and 99. Well, today, go in your cellar, crack open a 97 and 98 and 99. 97 is falling apart. 99 is falling apart. 98 singing beautifully.
Yeah, it had the structure to go the distance, definitely. You know.
Yeah.
You know, and I love tasting the 11 now, of course, you know, because, you know, 9 years later, it's just got a really neat character to it. You know, it's very different than these two Cabernets. But I thought you did great, you know. And
Thank you.
I've got a 12 I'm going to lay down, or maybe I'll bring it up when we get done with all this ISO stuff. I'll bring it up, and we'll, you know, I'm sure you have one there, but it'd be fun to crack it up.
Bring it up, because that's my favorite.
It is? Okay. I'll bring it, and the three of us will go hide somewhere and open that thing.
Well, it might be more than three of us. I'm having so much fun doing these wine tasting sessions with musician friends. Gordon and Vanjie from Monday, they're gung ho to come up here, and who knows, we might just have a giant jam session and crack open a bunch of wine.
That would be amazing. That would be amazing.
Hey, so you never got a chance. The first song you played today.
The first song I played was called "Kisses Don't Lie." That was off of my album "Talk to the Hand," and so yeah, you know, I mean, I just thought I'd put some tunes together for you. You know?
Awesome.
To kill time between the tastings, you know.
Well, hey, while these open up a little more, do you mind playing something else?
Sure, I'd love to. Love to.
Wonderful.
I'm going to play this one for you, Andy, because I know this is your favorite one that I do, and you and I have played this together before, which is kind of cool.
Spyro Gyra cover, "Autumn of Our Love."
That's right. That's right. There we go. How was the volume? Paula, was it okay on the last? Is the volume all right? Am I pegging you guys?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, cool. Here we go.
Very tasty. Very nice.
Cool, man.
And which of your albums was that one from?
That's also from Talk to the End.
Okay.
The first album. So yeah.
Good. And if any of our guests are interested, where are those available to purchase?
You know, you can get both. I have two albums. One's Talk to the End, and the other is called Party in the Back. And you can get both of them on iTunes. You can get them on Google Play, Amazon, CD Baby. So in most of the usual places. You can,
nice.
A lot of people hit me on Spotify. They're going, "You're on Spotify? Cool." You know, so
yeah.
So yeah. Get up in there and enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, no, it was fun because when I knew you were coming to play that party and I had talked to you about jamming, I was like, okay, I'll pull out the real book and we can jam out of that. And I was like, wait, I really like this song. So I'm going to make sure that when Cecil comes, I know how to play it in that key. And of course, you don't have a fake book for a Spyro Gyrotune. So that was called, okay, I'm going to sit down. And I didn't actually transcribe it. I just played it until I memorized it.
Hey, it sounded great, man. Got to do it
well,
again.
It's so funny because I think you were shocked. You're like, wait a minute, that's not a real book too.
So good to me.
Songs.
Well, I love that you knew the arrangement. So it was like, okay, this is easy. This is going to be fun. We're both going to have a lot of fun here.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. As you were playing, I kind of revisited. And Montaire, it's actually opening up and you're getting a little more subtle nuances. And there's a little bit of a caramel and a subtle blueberry, almost like a blueberry ice cream.
Ice cream. So you're getting a creamy kind of component.
A creamy sweetened blueberry.
Yeah.
And what doesn't show in these wines being 100% Cabernet is they're both 100% new French oak.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So new French oak gives you what? Gives you more dill, coconut?
That'd be more American oak, but the new French oak, when they toast French oak, it creates a phenolic compound called vanillin. And that interacts with the phenols already present in the wine. And they create all these new aromatic pathways. That's why, I've had people countless times say, I smell a lot of chocolate in this wine. When did you add the chocolate? Well, it's not that we add the chocolate. That's the fun. That's the magic of flavor chemistry, is phenols and tannins interacting and creating all new aromas that we associate with other food products and create this fun.
So Andy, going back to the Montaire, William is pointing out that the forest floor taste kind of disappears after the wine breathes a little bit. So see what you think of that one.
That's a good point, William. Thank you.
I agree.
Yeah, it's more fruit driven now. It's more those strawberry, blueberry, what I call the red and blue tones, but it's not the dark blue tones. I get a lot more pomegranate in the gate block, almost like a pomegranate syrup. I haven't been able to find it in the stores, but I used to get this pomegranate liqueur. Paula's not a big margarita fan, and I started making pomegranate margaritas for Paula. And it was just a concentrated pomegranate syrup with some neutral grain spirits. And you really get that intense concentrated pomegranate, blueberry. I need to find the picture because one Easter the kids had lots of peeps.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you do with blue peeps? Mm-hmm. You make a pomegranate margarita and put a garnish of a blue peep on the side of the glass.
I have not done that. I'll have to do that. That's a experience I'll have to get into there, Andy.
Please do not garnish your wine glass with peeps.
Well, they can't. You can do whatever you want, right? I mean,
yes, you can, but I'd be very worried about.
Yeah. I mean, it may not be the best thing, but you can do whatever you want. I mean,
this is true.
And Alex is telling us that he's having a mushroom risotto tonight, and I told him it better be some shiitakes in there.
Yes.
Yep.
Well, it's by great coincidence I didn't plan this in advance, but I'm grilling filet mignon at home tonight, and I think I will be in a lot of trouble if these two bottles don't make it home with me tonight.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I hear you. I Coravanned mine. I didn't want to like, pull the cork and drink all of them like right away. So I'm gonna take it in steps. I might lay down the remainder for a while, see what happens.
Yeah, so you've had good luck with Coravan doing that as well?
It's kind of 80%. The thing about the Coravans is they don't work well or at all with synthetic corks because they don't reseal. And of course, I've never really tried the Coravan screw top thing. I just figured if I'm opening it, I'm opening it. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I was watching your video on corks. With real cork, once you punch through, extract the wine and then pull out, then usually the real cork seals. And I've had really good success with that. Um, and I've done wines like 3 or 4 years later, and they're still good, or I think they're still good. So for me it works. I just, I'm the only wine drinker in the house, and Karen's not big on it, so probably wouldn't be, in good form for me to be drinking entire bottles. You know, because I don't get anything out of that, and a lot of times if I'm tasting, I'm going to spit, because after a while, taste buds go dead. So
Yeah.
so I try to.
Well, you know what? And you'll have better luck with Coravan with the Gate Montaire, because Gate Montaire in dedication, I use 54 millimeter corks on. So it's that much more material that can heal over time as opposed to your typical 49 millimeter cork.
Sure, cool. Thanks for doing that, Andy.
Yeah. Hey, just looking out for the Coravan peeps.
Coravan friendly wines. I love it. I love it. That's right on.
Well, fantastic. Well, does anybody else have any other comments or questions for today? While we're waiting, up from Katie said yes, so we'll wait for her to do her question.
Okay.
For those of you who are going to be able to tune in the future, why a screw top versus a cork? So if you get a moment, go to our YouTube channel, and I went way down the rabbit hole a week ago and spent an hour talking about corks and as well as screw caps. And actually, we do use, as I try not to knock everything over, we do use screw cap on our Chardonnay as well as our Sauvignon Blanc. And I really believe strongly that screw cap is an amazing closure for the right wines made the right way. I think a wine can age elegantly under screw cap, but for a $125 bottle of Cabernet, I don't think consumers are ready to accept a screw cap. There will be the rare one who will, but unfortunately, I cannot put any emotional roadblocks in the way of a customer wanting to purchase a bottle of my wine. So with the vast majority of consumers still wanting natural cork, that's the route I'm going to continue to go. However, I am purchasing corks now where the cork supplier is actually testing every single cork for TCA. So starting with the release of my 2017 vintages, I actually have a guarantee that there will be no cork tainted bottles in my wines moving forward. And I think that's the biggest hang up that people have with cork.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. But I think also there is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Andy, there's a pretty small segment of people that can actually sense cork taint. A lot of people, your casual drinkers, they may not even know.
Oh, there's a winemaker who I ski with about once a year, and he willingly about 8 years ago said, yeah, I'm perfectly willing to accept two tainted bottles per case. And maybe 2 years later, I got after him because he had changed his packaging and he was using much heavier bottles and even cheaper corks. And they said, yeah, well, I figured, the money I save by using even cheaper corks, I can afford a heavier, thicker bottle. And to my target demographic, they like the big, heavy, clunky bottle. They don't know what cork taint smells like. So he's accepting a 4 to 6 bottle taint per case, basically a 50% failure. To me, that's not acceptable because, we're we're selling to a different crowd. I'm not a Costco commodity brand. I'm, a small word of mouth brand where friends share our wine with friends. And hey, those friends come on shows and we do stuff like this to help promote each other.
Sure.
And, in these times, I think I just really appreciate you, Cecil, and all the other musicians who have been coming on here, because, it's only so much I can do to talk about wine in people's homes, but to bring a little music, to bring a little light to their lives during this time, I'm very grateful for you and everybody else who's been joining us.
Likewise, man. Definitely.
So, speaking of which, for those of you who have not signed up yet, our next show will be this Friday with Cecil's friend, Brian Culbertson. That'll be, all these shows are at 3:00 next week, Monday and Friday. I have my friends from Straight No Chaser joining us again. Wednesday next week is Earth Day, and so I'm going to do a little bit of an Earth Day special. We won't be doing a tasting, but we're going to take the camera out in the vineyard and pre-record some stuff with Fred. And Fred, Beck, and I are going to talk about what sustainability means to us and what it means to us to be a steward of this land that God has gifted us with. Then the following week, we have Morgan James. You may know her from Postmodern Jukebox, as well as John McLaughlin, in addition to having a successful solo career, both John and Morgan. John also performs with Postmodern Jukebox. And then Wednesday, about two weeks from today, we have saxophonist Michael Lington coming on. So a lot of fun stuff coming on. And Cecil, thank you today for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Do you mind playing one more song for everybody?
Sure, I'll play you out.
Wonderful. And to everybody at home, thank you for tuning in today. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, Cecil.
Thank you.